Good evening, a belated good evening. My name is Joseph Thornley. I'm the CEO of 76 Engage, Metrolinx's public engagement partner for virtual consultation. I want to apologize to you for keeping you waiting. Every once in a while, the internet doesn't work right, and tonight some of our plumbing didn't connect right away. But hopefully now you are seeing us on the live stream. And we are looking forward to this evening's meeting. We want to answer as many questions as possible and provide you with the information. So we will not end at the normal time. We'll keep going until 8:20 or shortly thereafter. So again, thank you for being here. Tonight's meeting is a conversation about the Ontario Line project with a focus on the north segment and Thorncliffe Park in particular. As your moderator, I'll try and keep the event on time or get it back on time, ensure your questions are answered as completely as possible, and make sure as many questions are answered as possible. Now, one important note, the event is being closed captioned. So to use the feature, simply look at the bottom of your video window, and you should see a CC, and if you click on that, you will be able to get closed captioning. As we start tonight's meeting, let's take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. We are all treaty people. Many of us come here as settlers and immigrants in this generation or generations past. We acknowledge the history, the historic and continued impacts of colonization, and the need to work towards meaningful reconciliation with the original caretakers of this land. Metrolinx declares its commitment to building meaningful relationships with Indigenous peoples. And we acknowledge that Metrolinx operates on lands covered by 20 territories, and that we have a responsibility to recognize and value the rights of Indigenous nations and peoples and conduct business in a manner that is built on the foundation of trust, respect, and collaboration. At Metrolinx, safety is important. It's fundamental to everything that Metrolinx does. So we're meeting now, and as I look out the window in front of me, it's getting dark. The days are shorter. And so we'd like tonight to focus on being safe when you're driving at dusk, when you are out at night. Make sure to slow down, pay closer attention to your neighbors walking or cycling or to work or school. Be aware, cyclists, remember to use your lights. So today's event is the second in a series of virtual events that Metrolinx is holding in September and October for the Ontario Station Line areas. Tonight, as I mentioned, we're looking at the north segment. Questions about other parts of the Ontario Line, you can view a recording of the West segment meeting held last week, or register to attend the East and Downtown segment meetings that are being held in coming weeks by click, or you can always get in touch with the Ontario Line team by clicking on the green Contact Us button right beside the Live Meetings button. Tonight's event is designed to provide you with as much information as possible and to provide as many opportunities for questions. We scheduled the question to last about 90 minutes. Because we started late, we're going to go until 8:20. Metrolinx, which you can see on the screen, and you can also download it by clicking on the presentation materials Ontario Line presentation PDF button if you want a copy of it for further reference. After the presentation, we're going to tackle as many questions as possible, starting with questions that have been submitted via the online submission widget. If you scroll right down to the bottom of your page, you'll see that a number of people have already submitted questions, and many people have voted for the questions that they are most interested in and want us to cover tonight. So I'd encourage you to review the questions that are already posted and vote for the ones that you want us to to cover tonight. After about 30 minutes of written questions, we have a Zoom room. And right underneath the video, you will see a heading that says call in with your questions and a yellow button, join the Zoom. If you're the kind of person that wants to be heard and is not shy about having your voice heard on the meeting, you can join the Zoom room. And in the second half of the meeting, there'll be a chance to ask questions. Now, previous experience has showed us that there is a lot of interest in the questions. So we're going to ask everybody who asks a question in the Zoom room to please keep your question to under 1 minute. We want to give time for as many people as possible to ask questions. So we have a panel with us of experts tonight and from Metrolinx. Richard Tucker is the Ontario Line Project Director. Malcolm McKay is the sponsor for the Ontario Line project. Natasha Jalal is a senior manager on our property team, and John Potter is the manager of design standards. Welcome, Richard, Malcolm, Natasha, and John. Over to you, Malcolm.
Thank you very much, Joseph. I really appreciate it, and sincere apologies for the late start. First off, I'd like to acknowledge that today is Yom Kippur, and we just want to assure those who were not able to attend that we will make ourselves available at any time, and that there will be many opportunities in the near future to participate in the community consultation process for the Ontario Line. What I'd like to introduce now is the agenda for tonight's meeting. It's going to run through the North segment overview with the updates by station and area. We're going to let John Potter talk about the design objectives for the maintenance and storage facility and the elevated guideway. Then we're going to talk about the timelines and upcoming engagement events, and then get into the question and answers. Next slide. So the Ontario Line runs from Exhibition all the way through to the Science Centre. Tonight's presentation is in Area 4, the north, that runs from 8 to the Science Centre. Next slide. The Ontario Line is going to bring a lot of transit benefits to Toronto and the community. An example is from Thorncliffe Park to downtown. The travel time is going to be reduced by 15 minutes, which gives a half hour every day back to people. We're also expecting less crowding on Line 1 as a result of the Ontario Line, especially at the very congested Young Bloor station. Next slide. So tonight we're going to run through the 2 underground stations at Pape and Cosburn with a very high level talk. We'll be bringing those 2 stations back at a future virtual open house. We're going to talk about the elevated stations at Thorncliffe Park, Flemington Park, and Science Centre, and of course the maintenance and storage facility. Next slide. So what we've done in the Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park area is we're currently setting up 2 tables. One is to explore the design principles for the fences and areas around the maintenance and storage facility. We're also setting up another community table to talk about how we can improve the public areas below the elevated guideway where the trains run. Next slide. Tomorrow, Metrolinx will be launching a public survey and asking the community for their opinions for the key objectives for the Ontario design options, which you're going to be seeing tonight. The survey will be live on the metrolinxengage.com until November 16th, 2021. We'll also be sending out the link to our event tonight. Next slide. So I'm going to hand it over to John Potter, and John's going to talk to us about the design objectives for the Ontario Line. John?
Yeah, thanks, Malcolm. So just by way of introduction, Malcolm talked about the survey that's going to be on the Engage website. Much of what we're going to be seeing over the next 10 to 15 slides we talk about design objectives, but really what we're doing is sort of presenting you with some ideas to stimulate discussion either now or in your responses to the survey, because there are areas for for meaningful community input into the design, especially for the perimeter fences around the maintenance and storage facility, and what you'd like to see in the public areas beneath the elevated guideway. So what we're going to show you, this is really to kind of get you thinking and solicit your feedback. Next slide, please. So we really started this process of soliciting feedback in August when we took 2 groups of local residents on tours of 3 sites. We wanted to give them some firsthand, firsthand views of what these facilities are like and how they fit into their respective communities. The real lessons that came out of it, though, were when we actually stopped the bus and spent some time talking. And probably the most significant outcome was when we were at the Leslie Barns. We got out of the bus. We looked at the way the perimeter fencing or perimeter noise walls actually act as they become the front elevation of the project. In fact, the maintenance and storage facility that sits behind in the yard are largely screened by these walls and are much less impactful than you would imagine. So what we're going to be asking you for is some input on what you'd like to see in the public facing walls around the perimeters of the maintenance and storage facility, because in fact those are the very elements that will determine whether it's a good fit for your community or not. Next slide, please. So when we talk about design objectives for the maintenance and storage facility, you may think, how can something this big fit into the community? Well, it can, and part of it is the way we treat the perimeter walls, because as I say, they become our street frontages. But the big part of it is the way we are, the kind of materials and architectural expressions we're looking to incorporate into the maintenance and storage facility itself. Next slide. This slide just talks about the fact that we are looking at contemporary designs for the perimeter walls, but there's a lot more detail coming, so don't take this as just the only concept we're looking at. Next slide. So the really interesting piece, and if you look at this image and you'll see an image of the Eglinton Crosstown LRT maintenance and storage facility coming up. You'll notice that we have built into our kind of design proposals for the MSF, we want this to be a civic building, not just a warehouse or a shed. We also have directed the consultants to look at facade treatments and cladding systems that would help this building, which is going to be a large structure, disappear. And one of the ways we do it is through reflective cladding that picks up the colors and movement in the sky and basically blurs the line between built structure and sky beyond. Next slide. And one of the important features of our MSF, or the Ontario Line MSF, which we also have on the Eglinton Crosstown or LRT MSF, is a green roof. And the importance of the green roof, obviously, is it helps us meet our sustainability and resiliency commitments, but also because we're thinking, if you think the view from grade, it's the perimeter fencing or screens that determine the sort of identity of the MSF in the community. For all the buildings that have overlook on the site, these green roofs will be an important amenity. It's almost like they believe it or not will read almost like a meadow or a park in the middle of the yard, the maintenance yard. Next slide. So this next section, we're going to go through a series of slides pretty quickly, looking at some ideas for what we call the perimeter fences, walls, and landscaping around the maintenance and storage facility. And again, this is where we're really looking for your input, because this will be how the community will experience the MSF, especially, down Thorncliffe Park Drive. And there's a few areas where it will sort of interact. You'll have interactions with the community. We want to make sure it's a space. We create the kind of look and feel and spaces that will both fit and also be welcoming and attractive. So if we go through we'll go through the next 5 slides pretty quickly. So, these are not proposals that we're actively developing right now. These are like ideas to plant seeds in your head so that you can think about what you might see. So this is an example of a screen, whether it's your taste or not. It's just a very contemporary, very simple background. Next one. This is a noise wall with a patterned concrete surface that kind of works almost like a bas-relief or a 3-dimensional mural. Next slide, please. I think this is a very, very potent image. This is the bike trail in front of the perimeter walls for the TTC Leslie Barnes project. And you can start to see where space allows that this can be quite a nice feature within the community. And next slide. And here, I mean, this is, it's a gray sky, but the murals themselves, there's a lot of opportunities. Murals are a way of kind of reflecting the community back at itself. This is a way of engaging local artists or the local community members to create an expression of their community that they can see and exists as an artifact. Next slide. And so this one's probably the most telling. It's just the way we look at things. There's not going to be one solution for the entire perimeter fencing of the MSF. Some parts look over a hydro right of way. Some are adjacent to a ravine where we really don't want to draw too much attention to the fence. We actually want the fence, the perimeter screens to kind of disappear into the vegetation. Other times, though, like you see here, these are areas where you will probably have a lot of contact as community members with the perimeter of the MSF. So we want to get your input on what you'd like to see. Okay, in the next section, we talk about design objectives for the elevated guideway. But in truth, go to the next slide. We're working very hard on the design of the guideway itself. We're working to make sure it's clean, simple, and elegant, and has the least impact on the adjacent community. We're looking at precedents from all over North America and in some cases globally to take the best design elements, look at extract lessons learned from what we see doesn't work. But really what we're going to be talking about now is how are we going to use or program the space at grade underneath the guideway. And this is, again, an area we want to come back to the community and get some input. This is going to be a space under the guideway running adjacent to Overlea Boulevard. And as you know, Overlea Boulevard is the commercial heart of Thorncliffe. So what is it that the communities would like to see under there? Like if we go to the next slide, we're going to go through 3 or 4 different concepts that speak to a different way of occupying the space. I mean, this one here, for instance, this is more treating the underside of the guideway as a recreational space. This is a kind of a little micro amphitheater. Is this, this would not obviously be the entire what we do along the entire length of the guideway, but we would, this could be an idea for a moment, someplace at a particular, an important location under the guideway. Next slide, please. Simply, does it make sense to have some landscaping, vegetation, and put out tables? Do we treat, and you'll see the next slide will also talk about it, do we treat this as a kind of a multi-use space where we make sure there's enough services that you can put tables out, you can have different kinds of events, be it farmers markets, crafts fair, art fair, or other kinds of mercantile activities that support the kind of existing character of Overlea Boulevard. Next slide. And then, of course, we have some good examples right here in Canada. And, we've seen in Vancouver, they create a nice mix between wide and comfortable boulevards with seating and sort of landscaping, and it all together creates quite a pleasant place to inhabit and move through. Next slide. And of course, we finish off, Overlea is the commercial heart of the neighborhood, and what's there today are low-rise buildings, and we have Costco and various other businesses along there. But as we know, the Ontario line will be a catalyst for social and economic change. So we want to plan for what could the street look like when the Ontario line opens, or even 10 years after that. So we're not looking at we're asking you not for what you'd want to see based on just how you know the community today. It's really a visioning exercise of what do you hope to see the community evolve into over the next 10 to 20 years. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Malcolm.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate that. Exciting opportunities to participate in design development here. And, we're looking forward to a very robust engagement with the community. So let's go to the next slide. So that leads into upcoming community engagement opportunities. We've been having pop-ups in Thorncliffe Park, which have been really well attended, and a good discussion and engagement has occurred. The community working groups in Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park are going to continue with the survey and the engagement meetings that we're going to be having. Our Queen Street community office is now open, and very shortly we'll be opening the East York Town Centre once we're done the renovations there. And coming up in early January of 2022 is the Environmental Impact Assessment Report, which will be issued for public consultation. Next slide. So some of the things that are coming up on our timeline, we've got our property discussions happening and our business tables evolving throughout the remainder of 2021 and into 2022, and then that will come to conclusion. In January 2022, as we said, the Environmental Impact Report will be issued, and in 2023, construction will begin on the maintenance and storage facility. With 2024 and 2025, the construction of the North Civils Tunnels Stations contract beginning. Next slide. So, number one, thank you very much for your time this evening. We're about to go into the question and answer session. And again, we apologize for the technical issues that we had at the start of the meeting, but we are going to extend the meeting to give everybody the opportunity. We're hoping that you'll sign up for our e-newsletter through metrolinx.com at Ontario Line. Please give us a call at 416-202-5100 or send us an email at ontarioline@metrolinx.com. Joseph, pass it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Malcolm and Richard and John. That was I found it an informative presentation. We've got questions. So let's go into the questions, and a couple questions right off the top regarding Cosburn and PAPE. First of all, a question that was submitted about what buildings are being torn down for the Cosburn station. The questioner says, I live on Cosburn and would really like to know what buildings are being torn down for the Cosburn station. Also, can you start notifying the actual residents of Pape Village and the apartments of these meetings? It's insulting not to know about it. So it's kind of a twofer there. What's being torn down and making sure that people who are renters are also aware of the meetings.
Yeah, super question. Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, so you will notice that we haven't focused on Pape and Cosburn Station to any great extent tonight, or even in some of our previous engagements. And the reason that is it's the last part of the contracts that are going to get issued. It's due to be tendered in September 2022. As such, the design there is less developed. Our intent is to bring those public information sessions to the community when we've completed the design evolution there. So that's why those ones are lagging. But you can expect a robust engagement coming up in the not too future. Back to you, Joseph.
Thank you. That's helpful context. Now, with that context about the lag, there's another couple questions about the construction between Pape and Cosburn, and I'm wondering how much information you can provide right now about the construction between Pape and Cosburn. How much of it is going to be above ground? Will Pape be closed? And what are your plans to reduce the impact on local residents and businesses?
So, Joseph, thank you for that question. So the section between Pape and Cosburn all the way up to Minton Place is all going to be underground. We're still developing the designs, as I said earlier. Up at Minton Place, we have had some community engagement up there. Our property impacts up there remain the same as we've been communicating to that community. Our ability to mitigate the property impacts is quite good along this area because of the fact that it's underground and running in the right of way north of Pape Station. Joseph?
Okay, thank you. You mentioned engagement. So there are a pair of questions. I'm going to put them together because a number of people have voted them up. And they're tough questions. The first one is, can you comment on why you have disengaged with community groups? It seems like you're up to something nefarious. And the second question is, why can't Metrolinx ever seem to have honest and meaningful engagement with community groups? So a couple tough questions, but they've been asked.
Yeah, Joseph. Okay, so I guess there's a couple of streams here that I'd like to follow. The first one is the Pape Cosburn discussion and the rationale why we haven't brought that in full flight into the community. The next one is our designs take time to develop. So it may seem like we're coming out late, but as soon as we have material, we bring it out, and we bring it out. Our goal is a truthful engagement with the community. And we seek that out, and I hope that people that do engage with us and have discussions with us understand the sincerity in which we deliver our projects. They are major projects, they are impactful, and we recognize that. And that's why we want to have these discussions with the community so that they understand what we're doing, when we're doing it, and how we can work together to make the impact of these projects as small as possible. Joseph?
Okay, thank you for that, Malcolm. Turning back to construction, the Millwood Bridge. There's a questioner who'd like to know why the existing Millwood Bridge can't be used rather than constructing an additional one. It poses much greater impact on the environment to create a new bridge. Can you talk a bit about why the new bridge and why there isn't an alternative to use the existing, please?
You want me to start that one, Malcolm? Sure. Okay. So, hi there. Yeah, the existing Millwood Bridge was, as you know, built quite some time ago, and over its life, it was actually widened somewhat. So in terms of capacity, there just isn't structural capacity for the addition of the Ontario line. The other issue is that the alignment doesn't work well. There's in the approach to the bridge, the existing roads and stuff, there's a bit of a squiggle as it approaches the bridge, and that doesn't really work in railway terms, and would be inefficient and could create some noise and vibration, which we, of course, we're very careful to not do when you have those tight curves. And anyone who's gone around the Union Station curve on line 1 knows what tight curves do. So so looking at that and the configuration, the alignments, the existing bridge, it was decided that the best way to approach this with a new modern structure that could take that that could take us on, right? So that's really the genesis of the alignment that we see today in terms of the bridge. Back to you, Malcolm.
Yeah, and in addition, through our design development process, we are putting out a bridge design here that fits the context of the Don Valley crossing. The fact is it's going to be a driverless subway going across the Don Valley. It's going to be beautiful views into the city for the transit user. It's going to be a very positive experience. Underneath the bridges, we're being careful to make sure that the valley remains intact and that our footprint is as small as possible with the minimum number of piers. So there's a lot of thought that goes into this in close collaboration with the Toronto Region Conservation Authority and the City of Toronto. It's a bridge that we expect to be very proud of. Back to you, Joseph.
Thanks very much. A quick follow-up that was asked. How long will it take in terms of the construction, and will the Don Valley Parkway have to be closed?
I can answer that one. The Don Valley Parkway is not going to have any extensive closure. There's probably going to be one evening or two evenings that we're going to have to install some bridge girders, and that's quite likely going to be a very short closure. Might even be timed with one of the closures that the City of Toronto has for their regular annual cleaning. So there's some work to be done there, but as far as those using the Don Valley on every day, number one, we hope you're going to jump on transit, but number two, your commute is not going to be affected by the closing.
Okay, thank you for that, Malcolm. Let's go down below. Minton Place. A questioner has been talking to drilling rig crews who came to Minton Place and says that they indicated that in that area where the portal is being built, the bedrock is almost 180 feet below the surface level. Can you comment on what that means in terms of the design, construction, and overall safety of the portal and the bridge, including how much time will be required to pile drive supports?
So I can start this one, and Richard will jump in and fill in the technical gaps. But first off, where bedrock is irrelevant to our construction in this area. We're not going to be driving piles in this area. We're actually going to be building secant piles, which are concrete piles that go down into the ground, and they link up together to create a bathtub effect in which the structures will be built. So our engineers are very well aware of both the water table and the geologic conditions in this area and are able to manage them very effectively. And Richard, maybe you could just talk about some of the timing, and then I'll close with the property impacts in the area.
Yeah, thanks, Malcolm. Yeah, so looking at the portal structure and the bridge structures that have to occur here, yes, everybody's aware that the bedrock is well down there, and but piles don't need to get all the way to bedrock to be effective. That's one potential way of doing it. We certainly don't drive piles. That is, a lot of impact. Excuse the pun. So we try to avoid that wherever possible. But there's two types of piles basically. There's basically called end-bearing piles, which stand on something, and we would normally think of as standing on bedrock or similar. And then there's friction piles, which work through the interaction of the ground with the pile itself. And this would be in the case where bedrock is deep like that, you'd end up with these type of piles. And essentially, the other thing we should mention is, we are aware of the slope stability concerns in this area, and part of the work we're doing is making sure that any construction in this area, in fact, we're anticipating that actually the work in the area will take some of the load off that slope and help improve the stability in the area. And this work is planned to occur, as Malcolm had mentioned, starting in the late 2023-24 time period, and moving forward from there. Malcolm, back to you.
Yep, and I'd just like to fill in. We've had a fair amount of community engagement in this area, and we've been indicating that the property impacts in this area are for permanent takes, and we're still working within that guidance that we had provided earlier. So if anything does change, we'll certainly reach out to the affected communities and the people in the neighborhood. So you can be rest assured of that. Thank you, Joseph. Back to you.
Thank you. For those who are arriving late, and some people may have come in late, we started a bit late, so we're carrying on a bit longer this evening. Right now, we're working through the most voted for written questions that were submitted in advance by people on the site. And in a few minutes, we're going to go to the Zoom room so that people can ask their questions verbally. So the next question is about the Science Center station. And the questioner is wondering whether you can make it an underground station. And they say the interchange between the Ontario line and Line 5 is best served underground, just like Yonge and Bloor or Yonge and Shepherd. And why must the platforms be up in the air? Why can't they be dug underneath Line 5 and use cut and cover construction along Don Mills on the land owned by Ontario for the OSC on the west side? Can you provide some insight into that design choice?
Sure, I can do that. So a couple of things. First off, the very wide roadways, right-of-ways that are available to us through this area are one of the reasons why we use the above-grade guideways to run the elevated subway structure. We've also recognized that there's an ambition, perhaps, for a future extension in the future north of Eglinton Avenue. By going above grade, it provides a natural, easier extension for the next team that takes over and starts that work. And surprisingly enough, a great deal of the interchange or transfer that happens here is actually from the buses coming into the bus loop, and we're directly above that. So it is actually a very good connection with that. The other thing is that if we were underground in this area, similar to the running under Cape Station, similar to running under Queen Station downtown, we would be very, very deep. And that in and of itself would make further extension north challenging, and would also make the transfer between the buses and the Ontario line much longer. Back to you, Joseph.
Okay, thank you for that. A question about expropriations around Minton and Hopedale. The questioner is indicating that they understand that in the past, you said you'd cap home expropriations at 4 homes, but now they're hearing hints that the final number could be higher than 4. Can you provide any information about your intention with that regard?
Oh, so I actually answered that question, but
Sorry.
but it's a good question, and it deserves its own answer. We've been communicating that 4 are required. We're working our best to stay within those 4 properties to build the portal that goes across the Don Valley, and our design currently still just needs the 4. We have hopes and ambitions that with the property that remains after we're finished building the portal, that we're going to work with the community to create some community improvements in the area and community spaces. So, we'll look for that, and we're looking forward to engaging the community to see what they would like to see in the future. Back to you, Joseph.
Thank you. I should have listened more closely to your earlier question. Maintenance yard. So a questioner is asking, why not locate part of the maintenance yard to the north of the CN tracks and connect with an elevated track? That way there'd be more prime developable land that could be used that would not have the storage area on top of it. So can you talk a bit about the location of the maintenance yard and why alternatives were discarded.
Okay, so the site selection process for the maintenance and storage facility, it's a very challenging one, and we recognize that because it is a very large property that we occupy. So what we did was we did a scan of the Ontario line all the way from Exhibition out to the Science Centre. We identified 9 properties that had potential for the future maintenance and storage facility, and we evaluated them, and we ranked them. And there were a number of things that were very important in the ranking system. One was that it be adjacent to the main line so that operations are as seamless as possible. The other is that it was properly designated as industrial type lands. We also want to make sure that the impacts to businesses and jobs in particular were minimized because we do recognize that every community, one of the most important things for communities are jobs, and we want to make sure that those are protected. So we ended up with a short list of 3 sites, one being the Wicksteed site, the Wicksteed industrial area, the north of Overlea area, as well as an area on Leaside. And having to go underneath the railway corridor and the lands that would be needed on the west side of the rail corridor for a maintenance and storage facility, we're going to make a transfer very difficult. And the business impacts in the Wicksteed area were quite high, and the job impacts there as well. When we looked at the only Overlea solution, it was very detrimental to the community because the property take was much more extensive. So we actually developed a hybrid solution, mixing 2 of the ideas together. And that's where we are today. We've evaluated it. One of the important things to remember is that although the businesses in the Thorncliffe Park area are affected, they're moving. We've committed ourselves to making sure that every business that wants to remain in Thorncliffe Park has the opportunity to stay there. All the employees that currently work there get to work there. So the services that are available to Thorncliffe Park community will still be in Thorncliffe. So, those were the things that went into our evaluation process. We are using some of the hydro lands, and we are using some areas adjacent to the rail corridor to further minimize the impacts. And we've done this in a way that also maintains the heavy industrial jobs up in the Wicksteed industrial area. So, it is a tough decision, and it is a decision that we don't make lightly. And we're certainly proud of the decision that we have made, because it is the right one for transit, and it is ultimately going to be the right one for the Ontario line and the communities. Back to you, Joseph.
Thank you. So a couple questions about green space and public spaces. Before we go over, in a couple minutes, we'll be going over to the Zoom room, but just changing the topic a bit to public spaces, parks, green spaces. For stations like Thorncliffe Park and Flemington Park, since these are elevated stations, will you be able to build public spaces around them? And more broadly, do you have plans to commit to a park or another public space in the area of the Minton portal once construction is complete? So just looking at those 3 areas, what can the public expect in terms of public spaces and park?
Okay, so what we are doing as a part of the Ontario line is doing a full inventory of community opportunities, community investments that we can make, and all 3 of those are on our list. And there's a much broader list. So the Minton Place, we've already talked to. We've already began discussions with them about the potential there. And we would like to do that with other communities along the alignment. So, green spaces are just one of the tools in our toolbox. There's many other things. Does the community need further recreation space, basketball courts, those sort of things? Community centers, gathering points. There's a whole host of things that we can bring as a catalyst that transit actually can enable. And we're desperate to talk to the community about these opportunities and get input from them, and as well as our colleagues at the City of Toronto and Parks and Forestry, because a lot of it involves them and the future of those elements once they are built out. Joseph, back to you.
Okay, thanks. So one more question along a related area, and then we will go to the Zoom room. There's been a lot of discussion during the public meetings, the meetings that you've held, about tree cover and taking trees out. And there's a question here about what steps you're planning to take to reduce the effects of the removal of trees in the area in relation to soil erosion and soil movement. I haven't seen this asked quite this way in any of the previous meetings. So could you talk a bit about that question of the impact of the removal of the trees on the soil?
So I can start it, and Richard can certainly finish it. So number one, we do try to limit the number of trees that we cut down. We have a replacement program that is very generous and is more than the trees that we cut down. We usually want to mature plantings as best we can. So that's the tree replacement program. But when we do have to cut down trees, and we do have to do it on areas where there's a potential for erosion, there is actually an erosion control program that Progeco, our project company that's going to be building this, will have to put together, and that will deal with the protection of the slope. There are soils treatments that might be necessary in areas where the slope is steep. Richard, do you have something else to add?
Well, I think, Malcolm, you covered it pretty well. But yeah, essentially, yes. Point one is we prefer not to cut down trees, and wherever we can, we'll avoid that. But as anybody knows, when building a large transit project, unfortunately, some trees will need to be cut down. And as Malcolm said, we have a very strong tree replacement policy. Where possible, we like to try and do that in advance of even cutting down the trees. And where we have to affect slopes, or there's a concern about erosion or slope stability, we have a lot of measures that we take to ensure that the slope remains stable and that any erosion that may occur is controlled at the slope and doesn't enter the stormwater or groundwater in the area, so that there's a complete range of things that we use. And then, of course, as we complete the project, we restore the vegetation and the ground cover so that it is stable over the long term. Back to you, Malcolm and Joseph.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think it's time for us to go to the Zoom room. So I know that there are people there, and Sivahani Vijayendra is there to take your questions. And just before we go over there, in terms of the ground rules, because we have so many questions, we're going to ask you, when you do have the microphone, please try and keep your question down to a minute or less. And if you have statements or other things, you can post them on the website and they will be seen by everybody in the question and answer. But please try and keep your questions to a minute so that we can get through as many questions as possible. So I am hoping that Siva, you can hear me and that you are teed up with our first questioner.
Yeah, hi there, everybody. And hi, Joe. Thanks so much for passing it along. Our first questioner is Mark, and I'm just going to unmute Mark to be able to ask his question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, it's Mark Richardson from HousingNowTO.com. We're mostly interested in the affordable housing opportunities around these Ontario line sites. First thing, I guess we want to thank you for having a minimal footprint on the 770 and 805 Don Mills sites. We were at the meeting the other night, and we're getting 2,000 units of housing, a new TDSB school, and about 700 units of affordable housing in there. So thanks for not using a lot of that land. But on other Metrolinx projects, particularly on the Eglinton Crosstown and the Finch LRT, we've been very disappointed that by default, all of the underground station boxes were not created to support housing directly above. So like the Finch site at 3933 Keel is one that we can't build directly on top of it. There's others that are like that as well. So we're looking for some assurance from you that the housing is possible to be built directly above the Pape and the Cosburn stations at an appropriate level of density.
So I can answer that, Mark. Great question. Thanks for the participating in the open house the other night for around Science Center Station. That's going to be a great opportunity, great development. I'd love to see that happening, and the Ontario line will be right at the doorstep. As for development above our stations, every single one of our stations that we have a footprint and a community that supports intensification, we're absolutely protecting for that. We're building it into the stations. So you cited several locations at Pape and Cosburn, and those would naturally, as underground stations, have reinforcing in place should an overbuild be contemplated and realized. So great question, Mark, and we've heard that loud and clear, and it's already in place. Back to you, Siva.
Okay, our next question comes from Mary. Mary, go ahead.
Hi, am I unmuted?
You're good.
Okay, hey, it's Mary Fragadakis. So I have a couple of questions, and one is a follow-up to Malcolm's comment. Malcolm, you mentioned that you're going to try to keep it to 4 properties that you're going to acquire up in the Pape and Minton area. And so my question is, like, why have you designated hundreds, possibly thousands of properties as transit corridor land? I mean, I know you said that the notice was going to be removed from the property title at the conclusion of the project, but that's between 5 to 10 years.
So Mary, yeah, I can answer that. You said you had 2 questions, but I'll answer the first one right away. Okay. So yeah, we're still at 4 properties in that area, and that hasn't changed. I actually reconfirmed that this afternoon with the design team to make sure that was a fact, and they assured me that it would not go above that. So I'm going to hold them to it, and you can hold me to it. As for the transit designated lands, okay, that's a much broader swath. It is not an expropriation. It's not a property take. It is a article on title, and it will be removed when the project is complete. But we are also investigating as we get closer and closer to delivery of the project, if all of those properties are still required, and we'll test the ability to release some of those that are well outside the area of influence. So you can be assured that that's part of the program. But those properties, by and large, we're not expecting there to be any need for expropriation. But in order to be able to deliver the Ontario line without delay, if something did come up and it was needed, that is in place to facilitate the discussion with the landowner. But hopefully it won't be necessary. Mary, back to you.
The second question relates to community engagement, and this is, like you mentioned, I think it was you, Malcolm, that in September of 2022, the awarding of the contract for the section, I guess, between Pape and Cosburn and Pape and Danforth is going to occur. And I'm wondering, in the lead up to that, about the community engagement and an office for that section, because you've opened the one down in Riverside and you are about to open one in the East York Town Center. So I'm just wondering, what are your plans for this section that is a very densely populated section with a lot of people who are very interested in knowing what their future looks like.
Yeah, Mary, I can deal with that one. So the public engagement in those areas, as I said, was kind of following the design cycle that we're in right now, and we're very shortly going to be coming out of that with results so that we can have a broad public engagement in the area and let the community understand what the plans are, get feedback from them. As I answered Mark earlier, we have made plans to strengthen some of the subway boxes, anticipating what may be happening in the future. So all those things are in play, but yeah, we're a stone's throw from having good community consultation materials available for the Pape Cosburn area, and the start of the RFP for the north section is September 2022. It takes roughly a year for that to close. So that'll be 2023. So construction will be in 2024. So we do have a little bit of runway, but we do want to get out there as soon as we possibly can and have those discussions. Does that answer your question?
Oh, sorry. I've already moved to our next questioner, MPP Tabbins. But Mary, I will also give you a chance to come back after MPP Tabbins if you'd like to ask a follow-up.
Great. I'm ready to go.
Yep.
Great. Two questions. The first, I've had complaints from the Pape area concerned citizens about transit, that the engagement with them has been dropping quite sharply, that they weren't even informed of this evening's meeting. And so I'd like to know why they aren't being treated with the respect that I think they need to be engaged with. And the second question is this, it relates again to this whole question of warning on title and restraints on construction for properties in the very large construction zones around this particular project. You had mentioned, Malcolm, that you will be evaluating in the next while. We'd like to know, I think, how soon we will see a policy showing that, in fact, houses that aren't needed, space that isn't needed for the construction will be released. And frankly, if you're doing construction up at the Science Center in year 10 of this project, while work down at Pape and Floyd has been long done and signed off on, why those properties can't be released as soon as construction is done in the area where work is of concern. Those are my two questions.
Okay, so MPP Tabbins, very nice to speak with you again. Yeah, when we met you, you brought this up. Credit to you for of raising the issue of perhaps an early staged release of some of those lands, and we are investigating that, and we are going to be testing how that might be implemented. So you can be rest assured that the concept you put forward, it's a good one, and we're going to be looking at it. As for the engagement at Pape and Cosburn, tonight's virtual open house was largely focused on the MSF and the Thorncliffe Park area and the design. That's maybe where an oversight in the mailing occurred, but a significant dedicated consultation effort at Pape, south of Pape, Cosburn, and Pape Station is warranted. And as I said to Mary, that would be forthcoming very shortly as the design evolution happens, and we're getting very close. Back to you, Sivahami.
Thanks so much, Malcolm. Our next questioner, it's a duo who are sharing an account. It's Gary and Bill. Gary and Bill, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. We live on Minton Place, and we are regularly greeted from a late fall to early spring by herds of deer who graze, sometimes as many as 12 or 15. And I would like to know what ecological geological studies are underway to assess the impact of the Metro line, the Ontario line, on the deer population. After all, it is their ravine.
I don't know whether that was Gary or Bill, but
That was Gary, yeah.
Gary, hi. Okay, Gary, thanks. Yeah, so we do have a comprehensive environmental assessment, impact assessment that's being done by our environmental team and due to be issued in early January of 2022. And naturally, the flora and fauna part of that evaluation is robust, and we'll certainly highlight to them the Minton Place area. I've been to Minton Place. I do know the natural area, the well-treed area in the ravine there. So yeah, we will certainly bring that to their attention and be able to address it in the environmental assessment.
Mm-hmm. So specifically, then the deer population will be addressed, we're hoping.
Yep, I would think that we would be able to speak to that. The full flora and fauna, as well as the fish life, is all part of the environmental assessment process.
I look forward to that in January. I have another question, or shall I wait?
Go ahead.
Would you mind waiting? Oh, okay.
No
I'd say you're on a roll. Go.
I'm on a roll. Oh, thank you. With TTC ridership decreasing, and we hear about jobs in the future, many, many, many more, possibly AI related, will all be done from home. So if it's not science fiction and we envision a future not too far off, with more and more people working from home and most likely fewer people taking public transportation, wouldn't the money be better spent, I would think, on affordable housing, health care, education? Do we really need this? That's my question.
Okay, thank you, Gary. So just, as a bit of a follow-up, City Council and the TTC endorsed the Ontario line and the building of the subway program. Investment in public infrastructure, subways, has been a long time coming, and this is the biggest investment that Toronto has seen in transit. And it's important because transit, this line doesn't just pick up people and deliver them downtown. It also affects the ridership on Line 1. Line 1 operates at or near capacity on most mornings pre-COVID. And the return to work is going to happen. We're going to be going back to the office. Others like us are going to be going back to the office. It may be a slightly modified return to work, but Toronto is the economic engine of not just Ontario but Canada, and jobs are here and business are here. They're relocating here. The expectation is that Toronto will continue to grow. And as a growing city, a major city, it deserves better transit, and that's what we're investing in right now.
Yes, thank you. I hear you, but I also, I'm sorry, I also think Toronto has other problems that need to be addressed. My final question is, what is your estimate on the total cost of the Ontario line? Like right now, are we talking 20 million, 200 billion? What are we talking about here? What is a realistic assessment as what this will cost the taxpayers?
Yeah, so the announced budget for the project is $10.9 billion, and that's the budget that we're working towards.
So 11 billion. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next questioner is Azif. Azif, would you like to go ahead?
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I have first is a comment and then a question. The comment is about the engage. I'm from Thorncliffe, and the level of engagement. If you had done a full study of Thorncliffe, you would know that to start with, most of the folks do not have English as their first language. So even your literature that you gave out yesterday is only in English. Your town halls all are in English. So I don't know how much you engage with the actual community who lives in Thorncliffe. Even yesterday, you all had a desk right in front of the Thorncliffe Library, unannounced. And only then I knew there was not yesterday, before yesterday, I got to know that there's a town hall today. And I had to go there and ask what was happening. And then they said this. So that's why you're not having anybody from Thorncliffe today and this call. There's no minimum, there's no engagement. And it's a shame that you have been doing. Second one, considering Thorncliffe is one of the most densely populated areas in new immigrants, and visible minorities, as well as the 3 most populated schools in Ontario or maybe even Canada. Have you considered or have you done independent audits, how it's going to affect, I don't know, from crowd or traffic, social disturbance, noise, because there are schools in the vicinity as well, 3 of the most populated schools. So if you could please address them. And also you're saying you're going to move the businesses minimally. There is no space in Thorncliffe to move any of the businesses near Iqbal or surrounding areas. And the mosque, which is a central community center, which is going to be demolished. And there is no other space equivalent to that you can move it to. So I think you guys just saw this as the easiest spot to put this and just shout it up our throats. Thank you.
So Azif, I'll handle a part of them. Thank you for your questions. We're glad you're here. One of the things that we are wanting to do is to make sure that we do have multi-language handouts going to the community. I unfortunately am unilingual, and I can't speak any other languages, but we do have means and methods to be able to engage the community. I'm glad you went to the pop-up. I'm glad that you were able to engage with the people there. I hope it was a positive experience. As for the audits, the design studies that go on, we certainly conducted those in all the areas that we were looking at potentially building the MSF. You know, it is, as I said earlier, it's a difficult decision. It's a challenging decision that we were given, and we certainly did not target any communities. What we did was we did a full evaluation to try and create the best solution with the best overall outcome. And then our goal is to work very actively with the community to ensure that the outcome of this, that we're able to deliver some community benefits as part of this, a catalyst that's started by transit investment in the neighborhood. You know, we at the pop-ups, we have heard people from the community that are very excited about the Ontario line being built in their community. They're asking us, how can we do it faster? And that's certainly one of our ambitions, is to make sure that there's good connectivity of Thorncliffe Park with the rest of Toronto. And the Ontario line is a step in that right direction. So, Azif, I understand your question, and you know there are things that we are going to be doing and doing better, hopefully, in response. And hopefully you'll be on the next call and be able to say you've seen an improvement. Back to you, Sivahami.
I think Azif had one more question at the end of that about impacts to the mosque and to the local businesses. Natasha, do you want to speak to them?
Sorry, just getting off mute. Hi, Azif. For the first one with the businesses in the area, we are working closely with all of them and the community organizations to try and find out where they would like to go. And we're trying very hard to keep them local because that's the commitment we made. So that's number one. In terms of the mosque, I believe that the mosque is already relocating to 20 Overley. That was something we heard from the mosque themselves, and they shared that information, I think, at a previous meeting, actually. Back to you, Sibahami.
Thank you so much. Our next questioner is Catherine. Catherine, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. I was a little disappointed with the design pictures at the beginning of the presentation. I would like to have seen more about the streetscape and the guided overhead that you're going to be used and how it's going to fit into the 4 lanes of traffic on Overley Boulevard. So one of the questions is, with the salt and other weather erosions, what materials are being used for the overhead guideway? And looking at what's happened with the Gardner, is there a capital expenditure fund being set up for future repairs and erosion 30 to 40 years from now on top of the $10 billion already budgeted? Thank you.
Catherine, I can start the answer to this, and then I'll pass it over to John. But as for salt, we don't use salt on the guideways. That's just not a practice that will happen. So that corrosion that you see on the Gardner is not a condition that we'll experience as a result of the Ontario line. So that's a blessing. Salt and water doesn't mix well with electricity, which doesn't mix well with our signals. And with a fully automated system, it's just not what we would be doing. As for the presentation materials on the guideway, that's what we wanted to do was just kind of sponsor a thought. There's a survey that's going to happen as a result of this, and what we wanted to do was plant some seeds and try and draw out of the community some of their wants and needs, and we certainly want to make sure that you participate in that. And then we can have a re-engagement where we can consolidate all this. We can bring some of our designers further ideas, but we don't want to get too far ahead on this one. We want to be able to develop this hand in hand so that the outcome is as good as possible and fits well into the context of the community. As for its interface with the roadway, the overhead elevated subway is actually on the north side of Overley, so it's not down the center of Overley. John, maybe you just want to touch base on some of the design considerations.
So yes, we will. We are working actually right now. We're really studying the guideway along Overley, and yes, we will absolutely have renderings and visualizations for you in upcoming engagements. I think Malcolm put it very well when he talked about we're sponsoring ideas. I think that's a really good way to describe what we're trying to get back from the community, especially around the kinds of activities we want to see on the ground plane, under the guideway, both along Overley and in parts of along Don Mills. This is we don't have renderings for that because we're working on some ideas, but we really need the community's input and really the community's vision for how they see that space being utilized in the future. And as I said in the presentation, we're looking at visioning not for today or 5 years from now, but we're trying to think about what will the community be like in 15 years, 20 years, and sort of not prescribe that at this time, but allow for the kind of unexpected and heterogeneous developments that could happen over time in there. But we definitely want to sort of set up a framework for positive and robust habitation of the space below the guideways.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Kayla, and she asked me to read her question aloud. It's actually 3 connected questions, so I'm going to go through them. 1, I live just north of Pape Station. Will the underground line run under Pape Avenue or under Muriel Avenue? Muriel is parallel to Pape, but 1 street east of Pape. 2, how many properties are they planning to expropriate in the area from Pape to Cosburn? And 3, if there is no number, when will folks be notified?
So, Kayla, the short answer to that is we're just finalizing all of that, and we are going to be in a position in short order to be able to start the discussion with the community, with some of the affected homeowners. All I can say is that at this juncture today, I wouldn't want to hazard a comment on that, but in short order, we should be able to come out with some good information for the community to have that first initial engagement on the south of Minton portion of the alignment. Back to you, Sibahami.
All right, our next up is Sheila. Sheila, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay, Aziz, you're not the only one from Thorncliffe Park, because I live here too. I want to talk for a moment about the online petition, which I know you all know about, and I know you probably know it's been taken down. It asked us to let the petition people know if we wanted to see the maintenance facility in our community. And almost 11,000 people said no, they did not want it. That's pretty spectacular, really, when you think that there are probably close to 30,000 people here and 11,000 people signed this. I realize from listening to you tonight, reading all of the various things you've put out, that you're going to put this maintenance facility here anyway. You're determined to do it. You're not going to look anywhere else. So a question to you is this. Instead of running the line from behind Costco and then out to along Thorncliffe Park Drive to Overlee, why don't you run it behind the buildings that are there and run it out at the very end to the end of Overlee or even Millwood, if you can do that, so that and then the station itself would be a little bit along Thorncliffe Park Drive, which is not a big place, a huge amount of space for people to have to walk, but it would take that line completely away from all of us. There's a lot of condominiums. There's 4 condominiums along Overlee that are not at all thrilled with having this line running 24/7, because it's not just the line, it's you're going to be running these cars in for storage or maintenance or washing or whatever it is, and they could be running 24/7. Okay, that's my point.
So I'll tackle the first bit, Sheila, and then maybe Richard could talk about the maintenance operations. But as for the alignment, pushing it back to the as quickly as we could off of Overlee to get behind Costco and not just run along the hydro corridor. We're on the north side of the hydro corridor, so we're as far away as we possibly can be from the community at that point, and it allows us for a easy access across the second crossing of the Don Valley to get over to Flemington Park and be able to put a station in there. We don't run by the schools at the corner of Don Mills and Overlee, and the alignment that we've chosen has what's called a catchment area or a walk shed, which is the 10-minute walk distance from the station that really captures almost all of Thorncliffe Park. So right down to the south where the tall apartment buildings are, over to the east, almost as far as Don Mills, and obviously over to Millwood. So we truly do have a location that has a good catchment for transit users, and we're actually forecasting fairly high ridership at the Thorncliffe Park station. So And you know, what we've heard from the community is with regards to subway coming to Thorncliffe is that they're excited about that. But you're right with the petition and the desire to relocate the MSF outside of Thorncliffe Park. But once again, as I described earlier, we have gone through an exhaustive process to try and find the very best location for the MSF that has as good an outcome as possible. And you know, some of the perceived challenges of the MSF in this area are things that we are able to mitigate and work with and overcome the challenges. And through a creative engagement with the community, we think that there are things that can happen in the community to benefit the community. We can create some of those green spaces. We can create some of those meeting areas that the community needs. So you know, we hope that you'll be very engaged and participate in the survey and join one of our working tables. We'd love to see you come out to that and join us. And Richard, maybe you can just talk about the operations, which are actually quite a bit west of the tie-in point for the main line to the maintenance and storage facility.
Yeah, so the thanks, Malcolm. The maintenance and storage facility is actually pretty far north. It actually straddles the hydro corridor with the maintenance and operations basically on the north side of the hydro corridor and the tracks on the south side, right, of the hydro corridor. So it's right up against the hydro corridor and the CP tracks. It's as far away from you know, the residential areas as we could possibly go in this area. And a lot of the activities actually take place inside the building itself. So a lot of the maintenance activities are actually inside the maintenance building with the doors shut to control noise and light and that kind of stuff at nights. And I think you know, it's also, you know, while certainly there's an impact, we're planning noise walls around the entire facility. So both between the noise walls and the distance to the community should be a good buffer against any nighttime noise or effects. And there's also some, you know, good news in terms of the employment opportunities that are brought with the MSF. So there's some good news there for the community in terms of a lot of good quality jobs that would be related to the operation and maintenance of the Ontario Line.
Yeah, Richard, in addition, in January of next year, we're coming out with our environmental assessment report, which will show the sound and noise and vibration of sensitive receptors like condominium buildings and be able to address and relieve you of your concern. Back to you, Sivahami.
Thanks so much. Our next question asker is Masood. Masood, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask this question. I've been attending these meetings for quite some time, and on this table, another community table, there are different opinions from different groups in the community. One group is very angry, taking the extreme end. One is the business community who are getting affected. And us from the community, there are 38,000 people living out there in Thorncliffe. So what the community wants to know, and me being a representative of the community, living in this community for last 21 years, my question is, after all this disruption, Metrolinx is trying to do something good for the benefit of the community, but what community will get after all this disruption? So many people are, it seems that 11,000 people have signed against the MSF. However, there are maybe another 25,000 people who are even not aware what's going on. So my suggestion is Metrolinx to organize a community meeting within the community, inviting all the stakeholders though only those people who are attending the meeting, sitting on the table, are not the only representatives of the community. If Metrolinx will come to the community, maybe when the situation will be improved and physical meetings will be allowed with social distancing, then we will be in a better position to understand what exactly community wants. If it will be definitely Ontario line is in the benefit of the community at large. However, if you come up with something like Jane and Finch community at Spadina, they got a community center, or Jimmy Simpson got something, what Thorncliffe community will be getting out of this entire project? So if we will listen this from you, we will really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Masood, great speaking with you again. Absolutely, the community benefits part of the Ontario line is intended to invest in the Thorncliffe Park community, as well as communities across the entire alignment who might be affected by the Ontario line, and just create opportunities and catalysts for investment. So, that's what part of the public engagement and the civic engagement is all about, is so that we can target the things that are of interest to the community. So, I welcome your challenge to make the table bigger. I can say that we did, as John said, we did do bus tours, and we had 25, 30 people on a bus tour of the maintenance and storage facility, all COVID safe with masks and that sort of thing. But it was exhilarating to be in the public space again, and I think we're getting closer to that. So I'm hoping that we can soon have those personal engagements. But in the absence of that, your challenge to create that bigger table to talk about community benefits is something that we certainly want to engage in. So you can count on that, and hopefully
can I ask that if Metrolinx is considering a community center in Thorncliffe, which will be in the best interest of the entire community living in Thorncliffe, then you may get more support from the community.
Yeah, absolutely, Masood. Those are the sort of things that we want to hear from the community. Is that what the community wants to see? Is it something else that we're just not aware of? And it's those ideas that come from people like yourself that will help us and guide us to a better outcome. So please, let's leverage up the strength of the community and have that discussion. Sivahami?
Thank you, Malcolm. We're down to our last two questions. We have Sarah and then Azif. Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, so I heard an earlier question mentioning the decreased ridership, particularly in the context of office workers. However, there are many essentials workers that can't work from home and rely on transit to get to and from work, and just traveling everywhere in the city. So my question is, why isn't more being invested in transit, especially given the threat of climate change and the unsustainability of urban sprawl, especially in the Toronto suburbs where transit is poor and borderline unusable?
So, wow, that's a great start to a great question. So, climate change is important. It's one of the cornerstones for transit. And it gets people out of their cars. Our goal is to make transit more attractive than taking the car. And if we can do that, people will take transit, and that will make everyone's lives cleaner and better. It'll make those who still have to drive the roads less congested. So it truly is a win-win. We are currently in the throes of building 4 mega projects, subway projects in the GTA, as well as LRT projects in other areas, including Finch. So there is a major investment in transit, and it's happening now. So it's we've got a big project to deliver in the Ontario line, so we're pretty focused on that. But we'd love hearing the support and the encouragement to want more. Back to you, Sivahami.
Okay, our last question is a follow-up from Azif. Azif, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. First, I would like to correct the comment made by the lady in the panel about the mosque. The mosque was not planning already to relocate. The existing mosque was not enough, so they were going to take another location, an additional location across the street. So what would happen with this is we are going back to square one. The existing mosque will be lost and we'll be moving into the new location with the same. So previously the plan was the additional location was going to act as a mosque, doubling up as a community center. We'll be losing that. And that will then I will have to say, go to what Masood was just saying. The community will be losing a community center which they were going to get. That's my comment on what was said before. And my initial question was when I asked about the environmental impact, the noise pollution impact, and the traffic and the social hit and all that. I was told the study was done, but what was the result of the study? Was it favorable? I don't think so. So was it addition of going with the least of the troubles? Thanks.
Hi, Azif. It's Malcolm again. So the environmental assessment report is due to be wrapped up in January of 2022, and there'll be an opportunity for the public to comment on it. That's where you'll see the noise and vibration results. Some of the earlier reports that you may be speaking about were for some of the earlier works down in the South Civils area. So anyways, January 2022, we'll be talking to you. I hope you join some of our community tables and certainly participate with Masood. And as for the negotiations and discussions with the mosque, those are ongoing and very active. So we do have staff at Metrolinx that are involved in that, and that's a path that in a discussion between those individuals to arrive at a conclusion there. So that's what I'd like to just say about that, and pass it back. I guess Sibahami, are we closed in the Zoom room?
I think what Joseph said is that we're out of time, but we have one more question that if we do have a little bit of time from somebody who would like to speak. Richard, I'm going to let you unmute now. Oh, Richard, you don't have the availability to let me unmute you. You don't have audio. So we'll ask Richard to contact us through our contact us page to set up a direct meeting with us.
Well, thank you, Sibahami, and thank you to everybody in the Zoom room and to our panelists. This is the end of tonight's question and answer, but it's not the end of the process. As Malcolm has said earlier, there are going to be many other opportunities for engagement. We have upcoming meetings scheduled. You can find those on the live meetings button at the top of your screen. There's also a contact us button, and you can book a meeting with members of the Metrolinx team using the link there. If you come back to this site tomorrow, you'll be able to see a recording of tonight's session. Over time, Metrolinx will also be looking at the questions because there were some questions that we didn't get to tonight, and Metrolinx will be responding to those questions that were of general interest that we weren't able to respond to tonight. And Malcolm talked about a survey that you'll be able to also see a link to that survey. I think somebody's working on it right now. Hopefully the wording is finalized. If we don't have it for you by 3 p.m. tomorrow, check back on the weekend or Monday. And people who registered for tonight's event, you're going to get an email when the survey is ready, inviting you to participate. So again, thank you to everyone for having participated tonight. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who waited patiently until we got over our technical issues. We hope that we've provided good information and a good opportunity for input and questions. Stay home, stay safe, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you and good night.